I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our Operation Freedom platform. I am honored to have back with me someone who is a very dear friend and someone who, for a number of years, has given you a heads up and told you that we were headed toward a stagflationary environment, and an environment where precious metals, although always precious, would become even more so. I'm honored to have back with me Adriana Reed. Adriana has been with the Camino Company, CaminoCompany.com, since 2011 as a trader. She is one of the principals in the Camino Company and is, I believe, one of the most knowledgeable and one of the most honest individuals in the precious metals arena. I won't pull any punches. There are a tremendous amount of companies and individuals who let's say, are not the most straightforward in the precious metals world. And they continue to push high-priced, high-ticket items on individuals. Camino Company. I have dealt with the Camino Company for 30 years. I have worked with Adriana for many years. I have never had one instance, either personally or with any person from the Operation Freedom platform that has ever gone to Camino, that has ever filed a complaint about transparency or honesty or integrity. And this is why I bring you Adriana Reed, because I believe, folks, we are at a breaking point in this world economy. And Adriana has told us this was coming. Got a lot of grief for doing so. Because, what Adriana has done over the years is she's told you information that you need to know, and it might not be what you want to hear. But if you listened, you are in a far more financially safe and secure position today than you were before you brought gold and silver as a foundation, if you will, for an insurance policy for your financial well-being. It's my honor to welcome back to our platform Adriana Reed. Adriana, welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
So, Adriana, we recently got some big number. The bought-off lamestream fake media, as I call it, we're breathlessly waiting for the number one indicator that the Fed uses about what's going on in the economy, and it's called their PCE deflator. And, they were concerned because the number might come in about over 5% higher, which would be an all-time 40-year record. Well, the number recently came in. Mm-hmm. And the number, Adriana, came in at not 5% higher, but, an all-time record of 6.4% higher. Adriana, on top of the manufacturing indexes plummeting, consistent with stagnation, consistent with this number, this is what you have warned us about for years, stagflation. Educate our listeners on why it's so important that they, if you will, handle their finances in the appropriate manner in this type of environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're experiencing right now is, especially since the pandemic hit, what happened is the economy, the growth of the economy is not going at any rate whatsoever. It really is just staying very plateaued. Now, when that happens and you don't increase production, manufacturing numbers are down, employment is not increasing, new job reports are not coming out, you run into a major issue. On top of that, we're also seeing inflation rise at a very, very rapid pace because of all the money printing. Now, they're blaming everything on the war, which we all know is not true. The only reason inflation has hit us as hard as it has is because the Federal Reserve pumped tons of money into our economy during 2020 and 2021 in the name of saving people. That's really all it was. Now, when you have situations like this, you put everybody in a terrible position, actually, where the economy, without its growth, you don't have people getting jobs and getting the money that they need in order to pay for everything that they have going on. And people are not going back to work as quickly as we had hoped, I would assume. And so you run into this major issue of how are people supposed to pay for things during stagflationary periods. Now, what you need to do is, financially speaking, is you need to prepare yourself for these types of situations. You and I started making videos, I believe, back in 2018 was one of our first videos. And those are kind of the key preparation periods that we go through, because the fact of the matter is this is not new for the Federal Reserve or the globalists to cause. You'll find that they kind of are on a clock. It seems every 10 years, we seem to have some catastrophic thing that we go through that they use as their chaos and destruction in order to control us, to financially make decisions that put them ahead of us. And my job, and the importance of my job, is to get you ahead of them so that you're one move ahead of what they're doing, so that you can secure your wealth, you can preserve your wealth, and you can be prepared for the things that they're putting us through.
I'm an old guy, and throughout my lifetime, the dollar has been the reserve currency of the world.
Yes.
And it actually had an even more, if you will, more secure position as the reserve currency of the world when in 1974, Henry Kissinger, along with Richard Nixon, introduced, if you will, the petrodollar, where if countries wanted to buy oil from the Middle East, they had to purchase dollars first, then purchase the oil. Then the agreement was we would provide support, if you will, to Saudi Arabia militarily. And for that, they would then take those dollars that were invested in their oil and would reinvest them back into our bond market, our treasury market, our stock market, and the like. Well, that's falling apart at the seams, Adriana. And the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, recently testified in front of Congress. And he made the following statement. Quote, "It's possible to have more than one reserve currency," end quote. Now, Adriana, let's take him, he's a bankster.
Yes.
Right? We don't trust banksters. But let's take that as he was giving us a heads up that the financial scene was about to change, of which the bankers have positioned themselves in a position, as you mentioned, where when chaos breaks out, as a reserve currency falls and a new one comes in, they're pre-positioned so that they're going to do just fine.
Yeah.
12 hours prior to that statement, the Russian finance ministry issued a statement saying that they saw gold as an alternative to the United States dollar. Adriana, we just saw Putin come up. And he said, you know what? And people thought he was bluffing. And I wish that people would stop thinking he's going to bluff.
Yeah.
Right? So he's come out and said, listen, well, here's what we're going to do. If you want natural gas, if you want oil, if you want our resources, you're going to have to pay us in rubles. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, we're equating the ruble to a certain amount of gold.
Yes.
Right? So let's take all these statements together. Powell's statement about the more than one reserve currency, the Russian foreign ministry about gold as an alternative to the dollar, Putin tagging resources to the ruble, tag to the dollar, tag to gold. Adriana, mm-hmm. We are looking at one joint communique away with Putin and Xi saying our ruble, our yuan are backed by gold and silver. Educate our listeners, because essentially he's already said that.
Yes.
Educate our listeners on what this means.
Right, exactly. So they're setting up the petrodollar, what would be once then the petrodollar, to convert into a new reserve like you were speaking about. Now what happens is they're going to back it by gold, which gives their currencies way more value than ours has, because as many of us know and many of us need to learn that if a dollar is backed by gold or silver, which the United States has taken us off of both of those currencies, that it makes it so that you can't have your dollar drop in value because it's backed by something that has strength. So what they're doing right now with Russia and China is they're setting themselves up to become the new reserve currency while making sure that it's backed by something with strength. And I don't think people, I think we're underestimating how catastrophic it would be if the petrodollar were to fall. The reason I say that is because China and Russia are very, very strong countries that are working together. They're working with Saudi Arabia as well to get the petro yuan to probably most likely be the new reserve currency. And it would knock the dollar off. It's one of the things that is actually keeping the strength on the dollar is the petrodollar itself as the reserve currency. Like I said, I think we're underestimating what will happen if the dollar does fall to the petro.
And while all this is going on, we have this. The Russia Duma, essentially their Congress, passes bill allowing purchase of precious metals by Russian citizens. The Russian State Duma has passed a bill allowing banks to sell precious metals to members of the public. It's the finance ministry said that investing in gold should be an ideal alternative for citizens to buying dollar amongst the unstable geopolitical situation. The branches of several Russian banks are offering gold, silver, palladium, and platinum for purchase by the public, and they removed the VAT, the VAT tax, to make it more, to make it easier, to make it cheaper for the public to buy in Russia. So, Adriana, the Russian government is doing this. The Chinese government for years has implored their citizens, and they're not any wonderful people either, just as Putin and the Russian, I mean the Russian oligarchs aren't. But they're giving their populace some insurance, saying, look, we're going to make this more affordable for you so you can get it. And by the way, that plummeting ruble, don't worry, it's going to be going back up, which, by the way, it is back to where it was before the invasion in Ukraine, right? China has been imploring its citizens, when they're not imprisoning them, they're imploring their citizens to buy gold, have been for years, and silver. Okay, meanwhile, our government is doing essentially everything to the public to dissuade them from purchasing gold and silver. And if you listen to the bought-off lamestream fake media in North America, they're barbarous relics. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, what they're doing is Russia and China are truly setting up for a global takeover, and they're doing it very intelligently. And I agree with you. You know, people keep saying that Putin won't do that. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that. You know what? You have to realize that this gentleman is in the space where he will do anything. Have to believe that, because he will do anything. And what he's doing is he's setting up his country for success. He's very adamant about Russia thriving. And it's not necessarily the Russian people, but the Russian oligarchs, like you were talking about. They need to thrive. And what he does, what they're doing is they're using the people on the ground in order to secure it more than they could before. As far as what's happening in the United States, honestly, you know, I watch the media in the morning just for the sheer sake of, you know, seeing what we're talking about. I watch as gold and silver. Gold could go down 1%, and they tell us we're in a bear market.
Right.
And then they tell you to go buy stocks, and then they tell you to go put your money into this or that, and they skew you into believing that these things are real. The stock market is so inflated that it absolutely blows my mind that we're even sitting at the position that we're in. All the money that was pumped into our stock market, it's insulting. But if people are buying gold and silver, they're actually going to be one step ahead, like we talked about before. And it seems that our own government is working against us to prepare the American people for the situation that is going to inevitably hit our shores.
So we have this Russia-Ukraine war. And it is a turf war. But as you and I have discussed, there's a whole other side to this war that the lamestream media will not report. But there was somebody of a financial analyst, big time, tied to the New York Fed in the past, a guy by the name of Zoltan Pazar. And here's what he recently said. You know, about this is a turf war, but whoa. There's more going on here. Here's what he said. when this war is over, money will never be seen the same again. Here's what he said. From the Bretton Woods era backed by gold bullion, so that's right after World War II when the US dollar was backed by gold bullion, to Bretton Woods II, which is when Nixon took us off the gold standard in 71, which was backed by treasuries and unhedgeable confiscation risks as opposed to gold, to now Bretton Woods III, which is going to be backed by outside money such as gold bullion and other commodities, again, like it was originally, only rather than the dollar, as you mentioned, the ruble, the yuan, the whatever it might be. After this war is over, quote, money will never be seen the same again. And I believe he was saying, Adriana, you got a shift in reserve currency occurring. And you better take the necessary steps. So, and this gets back to my introduction. The necessary steps, insurance-wise, is to own gold, not paper. There's a difference. Physical gold and silver. Okay. Now, let's take this stepwise for folks. Why, Adriana, is there a difference? Some people say, well, I called my broker. My broker said I could buy some gold, physical gold, but in paper form by owning what's called an ETF. Now, is that the same, Adriana, as holding, whatever, gold, silver in your hand physically?
No, it is not. Absolutely not.
Now, why?
So let's explain the difference. So an ETF is the contract that will be on gold and silver. This also can include mining contracts, for example. Now, those fluctuate. They go up and down. The issue with ETFs right now, that if I were to wake up and I was in charge of everything and I said, I'm doing a call, I want all the physicals to be delivered on the contracts that are out, I am of the belief that those contracts could not be filled, because I believe that ETFs are, they have overdone ETFs. They have manipulated them so heavily that they would be in really big trouble. That is why I'm adamant about the physical. The physical, once it's delivered to you, it is in your hands. You know that it's there. You know that you don't have a bad contract. You know that it can't be wiped out by a keystroke because you physically have it in your hands.
So let's talk about getting it physically in your hands. Okay.
Yes.
Now, I get a lot of emails from folks, and they said, well, I talked to my uncle about this, and my uncle has a friend who runs a coin business. Okay. And they said, I called that guy, my uncle's friend, and he told me I should get these, these are a lot more expensive than just buying it like per ounce. It's these numismatic that will be worth a lot more because they're rarer coins.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, in people just getting involved in holding physical gold or silver, there's really high markups on those numismatics in many instances. And it can be used as a way of, I don't want to say ripping off people if they don't have the knowledge base on it or experience. And my philosophy, and you can tell me if this is wrong, but my philosophy is when you buy physical gold and silver with whatever money you have allocated, try to get as many ounces of whatever you're buying as you can. And if you're going to buy numismatics, you're betting on a potential of it going up more, but that's not in the cards. What's your take?
I mean, I 100% agree. My rule of thumb is, especially when we're comparing apples to apples, you want to buy the cheapest apple because it's still an apple at the end of the day. Gold is the same way. You want to buy as many ounces as you possibly can. We're trying to make your dollars go further. So what we want to do is we want to buy the items with the lowest premiums because you are trying to obtain the most ounces possible in a purchase. It is one of the things that I'm actually very adamant about right now because we are seeing some extreme fluctuations in our markets as far as the premiums go. Because, for example, the U.S. Mint, the Canadian Mint, they can't keep up production with the demand that is currently going on. So the premiums we are seeing are much higher than I've seen in the past. And so that's why I always say go for the lowest premium possible, because what we're doing is we're getting your money out of fiat currency into a safe haven investment so that you can hedge and be prepared.
So educate our listeners on premiums. So as a retailer of these of gold and silver, you have a supplier, and the supplier has to pay up from the mine or whatever it might be to get the metal, and that's called a premium, of which you obviously have to pay as well. And these premiums fluctuate.
They do.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's look at it over the past 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
Where are premiums today compared to what you've seen over the past 6 to 7 years?
Absolutely. So if we were going to say, let's just take a time machine and head 6 years back, premiums are potentially, I would put them at, say, 3 to 4% cheaper on gold than they are at this point in time. It is some of the highest premiums I have seen. I wouldn't put them as high as 2020 if I was going to really look through everything. But I would say that this year we are starting to see, since the Russia-Ukraine incident occurred, premiums are starting to go back up again, because we are seeing more people saying, hey, this is not looking good either. I need to start investing back in gold and silver. Then you have on silver. Now, silver is a tricky one. We go off of absolutes in silver. So the percentage looks actually what I would say is probably insane. For example, right now, silver eagles alone. Now, the spot price is hanging around 25. Silver eagles have a $13.50 premium. So you're paying these significant premiums to get it in that form. That's why we'll recommend other items that you could purchase that would have lower premiums, where you're looking at $3 to $4 over the spot price, which is much more logical in what we're trying to do. But, I still am adamant that it's your decision to buy what you choose to buy. And if it's the silver eagle that you want, I'm happy to sell it to you. But, like you said, we want to obtain the most ounces possible versus paying in essence, paying the price for it to be in a different form is really what it is.
So take us through the different options in gold and silver when folks purchase those items.
Absolutely. So we have what we call them the big three, in essence. The three most traded gold coins in the entire world are going to be the American Gold Eagle, the Canadian Maple Leaf, and the South African Cougarand. Then you can go into items like the kangaroo, which is the Australian kangaroo, which is a really great option as well. The kangaroo and the maple leaf seem to be holding the lowest premiums. The other reason I also like those coins is because they are 24 karat coins. So I do find them kind of more ideal in my liking. You can also buy bars. Now, one of the things that you and I have talked multiple times on this show about is the bars. I buy back anything that I sell, no problem. But what I always make sure, and if you look at our website, the items are very limited on the items that we sell. The reason we do that is because you may not be able to take the time to mail it back to us, and you may have to go to a local dealer to get some cash. You may have to, do a trade with somebody or something of the sort. And what our job is to set you up so that you're okay if you had to handle it locally, and that you'd be okay if you could ship it. Now, the downside with bars in the general sense is that the bars, because they are more often faked, that local dealers don't have the capacity to buy them back, test them, and do all the things that someone like at our operation would be able to handle. So it is something that you have to take into consideration when you are buying the bars. Now, we do offer the bars in a 1 ounce bar, a 10 ounce bar, and a kilo bar if you are trying to get into a more bulk purchase where you want to really put your money away and just not think about it anymore.
Then let's talk about silver options there.
Absolutely. So on the silver side, we offer privately minted, which is where the route that I would personally go at this point in time, like I said, due to premiums. So you have 1 ounce rounds, which are going to be generic 1 ounce silver coins. They're 99.9% pure, and they're 1 troy ounce. It's all marked on it. They're all regulated. They're good to go. Then you can hop into 10 ounce bars, which is the next size up. We actually have 5 ounce bars we offer now. So if you wanted to do like a smaller bar that you felt comfortable with, a 5 ounce bar is also an option as well. You can go into 10 ounce silver bars. You can also go into 100 ounce silver bars. Just for perspective, the 100 ounce silver bar is about the size of a brick. So it is more on the bulky side, but the premium, as you increase in size, the premiums are going to lower. We also offer the silver eagles. Now, there's lots of people who like to buy the silver eagles. They buy the monster boxes because they prefer them to be sealed. They just feel more comfortable when buying in that size. We do offer silver eagles. Right now, we are offering the silver Canadian maple leafs as a pre-order, but we are at this point 5 to 6 weeks out on delivery due to the high demand. The Canadian Mint can't keep up at this point. The last and probably my favorite of all the items is going to be the 90% silver. The 90% silver is going to be the pre-1965, so 64 and before. We're talking about halves, quarters, and dimes. Now, the reason why I like this is because I play out in my mind that we have basic scenarios ahead of us as we keep heading forward into the turmoil that they're causing. Now, scenario number one is inflation is going to keep going up, and having silver on hand is a great investment against inflation, and it sets you up for success. If you ever had to turn it back in, your dollars would go further. Then you have scenario number two. Now, I think this is very likely that we will head for a reset in our currency, that we have no option. We're in extreme debt. Inflation is high. China and Russia are currently trying to knock us off as the reserve currency. Now, if you needed to trade into the new currency, it would be a great way to take your dollars. As everybody else's dollars decrease, your silver will increase in value and take you into the new currency at a higher value. So it'd be a great option. Now, the reason I also like the 90% silver is, unfortunately, these past 2 years playing out the way they have, is that I call it the Wild Wild West scenario, that if you had to barter or use silver to pay for things, the silver dimes, quarters, and halves are a great option to have to barter if you had to. Now, that's the God forbid scenario, but I always tell everybody you have to prepare for the worst, and then we hope for the best.
And then in the process, Adriana, Camino's very transparent about this. And some of the emails I get from people that went other places to purchase because their relatives knew somebody or whatever, they talk about how it's not transparent. I think it's important for you to outline to folks the transparency you have with Camino in purchasing and when you sell and when you purchase back, because that transparency, I believe, is so important. You guys make it very simple, very straightforward, very upfront. Educate our listeners, because in case they get roped into doing business with relatives, friends, they see some red flags go off if they don't hear it's the similar process.
Right, absolutely. So when you give us a call, you speak to one of the traders. They'll go over a plan for you that works best for you. Now, we deal with people who spend $35 and people who spend millions of dollars. Everybody is going to get treated the same, and we're going to find what works best for your spending capability. When you place an order with us, the prices are locked in at that time. Now, to clarify what that means, the spot price, which is going to be the price that is traded on the markets, which is going to be ever changing all the time. It's rarely closed. You'll see Saturdays it's closed, but we do have a market and an aftermarket. So we're usually open almost 24 hours a day. There is a closed period for about 30 minutes during the day. That price that we lock in, while the markets are still constantly changing, once we agree to that price does not change. There is no added fees. We have free shipping, and it's all very straightforward. You send us payment. The payments we're currently accepting, we can take a wire. Wires, if the item is ready to go, will ship out in about 48 to 72 hours, unless there is a little bit of a delay due to the volume in orders that we're doing, or if an item also is, which we would clarify at that point in time when you order, that there is a delay on the order. We do accept cashier's checks and personal checks as well. The checks are held for 5 business days before we ship out. So if it looks like it cleared in your bank, we understand that, but we have a longer holding period because reversals on checks, unfortunately, sometimes take 3 to 4 business days for any notification on our side. You then are put in line to ship. Shipping wise, when we ship everything out, everything is packed tightly, so there's no noise. There's no indication of what's inside the box. We even on our label, we take Camino coin out. We put Camino company. We don't want to indicate to anyone what's inside the box. Now, right now, all signatures are required on all the boxes that we send. We obviously understand we have used FedEx, UPS, and USPS. We are difficulty with people that are out of our control, not doing their job when a signature required on packages. It doesn't make me the happiest of people to deal with, but we are doing our best to get everything out to people as quickly as possible with that signature required. Once you obtain the physical metals, this is also a really important thing that we always are adamant about. When you purchase and we talk about your purchase, we also talk about storage capability. Mm-hmm. As, for example, I can buy $50,000 in gold and I can put it in my pocket and walk out the door. If I buy $50,000 in silver, I need a hand truck and you need your car empty so that I can have some space to put it in there. Now, that being said, a good safe at home is my personal favorite. I think that if you have it in a safe, it's kind of hidden away, it's stored at your home. Unfortunately, I think is the way to go. We saw in 2020, 2021, how quickly things can be taken from us as far as accessibility. That includes your safety deposit box. Mm-hmm. Out here, people had 3 to 4 month delays even having access to their safety deposit box. And that was just at the local Wells Fargo. So you want to make sure that everything's close to you. That's what it's there for, so that you can use it whenever need be.
Adriana, and then so storage facility. Let's take that because that's very important. Yeah. So there are independent depositories.
There are.
Such as Brink's, one that I'm familiar with, but there are many others. Many of them popping up because they see a need for this. Where so some people are saying, "Well, I don't want to put it in the bank." Right? That's right. You don't want to put it in the bank because you're putting it right back in the system you're trying to get it out of. But I'm hesitant about keeping it at home. So these independent depositories, and you obviously, if folks call, you can tell them, hey, in your area, here's some options, blah, blah, blah. But this is another avenue because many people say, well, I'd like to do this, but I'm concerned about, I don't want to have it in my house. Fair enough. I agree. I understand. I agree with you. Right. And, I don't want to put in a safety deposit box. Don't want to put it back. Got it. So these independent depositories are I have found over the years a very good option.
They are, absolutely. So the good thing about it's a privatized entity, so it's between you and the owner of the company that you work with. The main thing is, and I always tell people, is that you always make sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's when you're talking to somebody about storage. Now I can give you potential depositories to store at, but I don't know everybody, to be honest. I mean, there's so many of them. We're talking about 50 states of storage facilities that are popping up. Mm-hmm. Here are some key questions that I would ask. Talk about the insurance on the boxes that you get. Make sure that you're fully insured, that if you put your material in there. Talk about, look at the building even. Mm-hmm. Security. Mm-hmm. I want to know that, when he walks away and it's locked up at night, how well secured is my material in this building? Those are two of the main things that I would focus on. And then lastly is take the time to get to know the individuals that work there. It can kind of give you a good sense of what you're the position that you're going to be putting yourself into by trusting your material with that individual.
And also try to find someone who has used that facility so you can talk to them to see what they say. Because I found word of mouth was extremely important as far as... Now, take us through the reverse, Adriana. Someone says, okay, I bought some gold and silver. Here I am. Ooh, the prices are way up. I have a wedding to pay for.
Yeah.
And I need I need to cash in some of my gold and silver to pay for the wedding. So many people say, well, I'm very concerned. I think it would be very difficult for me to sell it. That's not the case, at least with Camino. So educate our listeners. Essentially, it's a reverse process.
Exactly. It's just, you would call us up, let us know, hey, I have 10 gold eagles that I want to sell. We're going to ask for the specific number, the item that you want to sell. We lock in all of the prices at that point in time. So we have a standard that we agree to the contract. You get a PO number. Then you would send us the material. We check and make sure that the material that was spoken about is exactly what it is. And then we send out payment to you.
Now, more emails from some other people who went elsewhere with a relative's friend. They said, hey, I purchased it at a number, $23 an ounce. And by the time it was ready to be delivered, the price had gone up to $26 an ounce for the silver. So they said I had to pay the surcharge of $3 per ounce per item before they would ship it.
Yeah.
Now, that's not how Camino does business.
No, and Dave, I've said this lots of times on the show, is that the key to capitalism is moral capitalism.
Right.
And so when we lock the price in with you and we agree on something, you know, in some ways I tell people, you can call me old fashioned. It's kind of like a handshake, is that I'm going to provide material at this price. We agreed upon that. And that's the agreement that we're going to stick to. We'll provide for you as long as you provide for us what we agree upon together.
And the reverse is true. If you buy something, let's say at 26 an ounce for silver, and it falls to 23 by the time you get it, it's not like you say, oh, by the way, exactly. I'm only paying you 23, even though we agreed to 26. But there are, and this goes back to one of my statements earlier in this interview, there are some companies that do that.
There are, unfortunately, because they kind of put a bad taste in people's mouth as far as it comes to investing in precious metals. And our job at Camino is to make sure that the experience is smooth, that it's easy. What we're trying to do is trying to rid you of the anxiety that you have even in the first place by having your money in fiat currency. So we don't want to add any more stress to the purchase itself. We do have a lot of newbies and people who are afraid to get their feet wet in our industry because they don't want to put their money out there, because they are fearful. They don't want to take a chance. In their mind is that they're taking a chance with their money. And, you know, especially I will say, you know, 60 and over, these times are pretty scary for those individuals, in my personal opinion, because they want to retire. They want to enjoy the rest of their life while they're hearing things about their money being, in essence, being taken from them or devalued. And that's terrifying. So the other thing that I get into is working with IRAs.
Yeah, that's what. Excellent. Let's hit that, because many people are told by their brokers, oh, you can't own physical precious metals in an IRA. Yeah. And correct. That is not universally true, is it?
No, it is not. So there are IRA companies, custodians is what we call them, who do not allow the purchase of precious metals by choice. That is their choice with their company. You can do a rollover with your IRA so that you stay within that bracket. You don't get hit with any penalties or fees for taking money out of your 401k or your IRA. It goes straight across the board to companies that will allow the purchase of precious metals. Now, there's a couple things that come with this. Number one, I am not the custodian, just to be clear. I will help you broker the deal by I sell you the precious metals. You would list me as your broker. Now, number two, at this point in time, you cannot store precious metals in an IRA with your own storage capability. The IRA companies will choose a bunch of depositories and give you a list, and then you can pick from there. So a lot of people think that that is a major downside, but I have to tell you, in my personal opinion, at these points in time, if I pick between fiat currency, stock market investments with my IRA, or having gold and silver, you have to weigh the pros and the cons, in my opinion. Now, a pro is that your money is in precious metals and that keystroke can't take out your IRA. The con is that it is not in your possession per se. But like I said, we are on times where everything is incredibly rocky. So you have to choose wisely.
Adriana, educate our listeners on how they can get in touch with you and the folks at Camino.
Absolutely. So you can give us a call, 800-348-8001. We're open time 8 to 4 o'clock. You can also head over. We do have a 24/7 store, Camino Company. You can also email me directly at adriana@caminocompany.com.
Adriana, I'd like to thank you and everyone at Camino for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. You have created a financial lifeboat for individuals in this very, very turbulent sea that has been created by the globalists, as they are, if you will, changing oars in the boat when it relates to the reserve currency of what's going to kind of, if you will, run the financial system. And what gold and silver do is they, if you will, they balance that heavy sea and really make it very placid by giving people financial stability and security. And I thank you for doing this, because you get a lot of grief for doing what you do. And so does Camino, right? Because your company empowers every person who's willing to enhance their own financial future and security and safety. And the powers that be, the globalists, don't want that to happen, because the more people that are vulnerable, the more people that can more easily be controlled.
Yes.
And what you do and what Camino does is they let people be in control of their financial future. And I thank you for doing that, because many people would not have the perseverance, dedication, and sacrifice to do that. And I thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
And I thank you folks for joining us today. Adriana can be reached at Camino, Camino, CaminoCompany.com. Phone number
800-348-8001.
Bingo. Thank you folks for joining us. Until next time, Dave Janis signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.